Hill.
I call the Honourable Member Nikki Kay.
Mr Speaker, I'm pleased to support the Advanced Technology Institute Bill to the House. As Chair of the Education and Science Select Committee, I will look forward to working collaboratively with all members of the House on this bill. I want to acknowledge that the ATI is to be named after one of our greatest scientists and a great leader, the late Sir Paul Callaghan. The late Sir Paul Callaghan said last year that my view is that to succeed, New Zealand businesses need to be the best in the world at what they do. And with that, I would like to just firstly set out how this is within National's significant investment in science and innovation framework, and I just want to cover off some of the things that we have done in the last 3.5 years. I know that the Honourable David Cunliffe has mentioned a couple of things, and he's raised a number of issues which I think are actually incorrect. If you look at what we have invested, we've invested $166 million in the ATI Institute. Our overall funding in terms of science and innovation has increased by 17% over the last 4 years in very difficult fiscal times. That includes a $250 million injection of cash in the last budget, with $76 million in capital funding over the next 4 years for science and innovation. We have invested $500 million in the Primary Growth Partnership to develop cutting-edge research and innovation in our rural industries. We've also undertaken significant reform in a number of areas, like the Resource Management Act, like labour reforms, which have been opposed by the opposition. This is part of a very comprehensive reform of our science and innovation ecosystem, and I think members on this side of the House are very confident that we have not only invested significantly to show that we have increased our budget by 17%, but we have also reformed all of the other levers within government, like labour reform, Resource Management Act reform, reducing costs to businesses, ensuring that we have decent company tax rates, to actually enable our businesses to get ahead. So I just want to make that point before I go into the actual detail of the bill. So the purpose of this bill, and it's come out of the Powering Innovation Report, it's also part of what we know from international evidence, that by being business-focused, ATIs can help firms expand their own innovation capabilities, which enables them to grow and add value to the economy, is that we actually get the best ideas to the marketplace faster. We want to ensure that New Zealand does a lot better in our rate of conversion of ideas into commercial products. That needs to be both greater investment from a public sector and a government perspective, but also ensuring we have a one-stop shop for businesses to be able to invest more in R&D, be able to be connected to CRIs and other tertiary institutions, and also be able to be better connected to international marketplaces. I must say as well, this is part of our overall framework, whether it's the aggressive trade agenda that the Honourable Tim Grosser has progressed. It's about ensuring that we're better linked up to international markets. The other thing that I would say is that what is very important, what's been emphasised to me by businesses and by key scientists, is to ensure that we are not just focused on the physical infrastructure, but also the intellectual infrastructure of the ATI, so that we are able for this to be a high-tech headquarters for innovative businesses around New Zealand. We know that some research organisations have lacked visibility and relevance to manufacturing and service firms, and their research capability, though significant, has been very uncoordinated. We want to focus with high potential growth in areas like food and beverage manufacturing, agri and digital technologies. If we do this, we know that we can increase the number of firms carrying out R&D, encourage firms that are already doing R&D to invest more, and boost the innovation and commercialisation capability of firms. I want to mention that one part of the ATI's role is going to be to help business build industry-led innovation consortia and act as a portal through which businesses can access appropriate R&D and technical expertise in both New Zealand and overseas. But I also want to mention that it is a service provider, so it's there to help to offer businesses technology testing, applied R&D work, business development, technology and knowledge transfer. The Honourable David Cunliffe actually mentioned the establishment board. I'd like to mention that Neville Jordan does have significant experience in terms of engineering and science, so it's not fair to say that this is just a whole lot of corporate managers. I think the purpose of the establishment board is to get the ATI up and running quickly. We've been very clear about that. But another major aspect of the ATI is about greater collaboration. We know that in the past government can act as in silos, and we need to ensure that businesses are better connected. We know that they will have more compliance costs, that they will waste time if they don't have a one-stop shop to connect them to CRIs, tertiary institutions and international markets. Finally, Mr Speaker, I want to mention a couple of things in terms of the location of the ATI. We know that we've identified several areas: Auckland, the Hutt Valley and Christchurch. I'm very pleased, obviously, with the Wynyard Quarter Innovation Precinct. That is going to be a key space for innovation, but that we also ensure that the many businesses within Auckland are connected to the ATI. So I'm very pleased that the ATI will potentially be located in central Auckland. The ATI will also seek to improve connectivity between businesses and the significant but highly distributed capability that exists across New Zealand's public and private research organisations. The purpose of this is that the ATI can collaboratively work with industry, Crown Research Institutes, universities and polytechnics, as I mentioned, to develop partnerships and maximise commercialisation opportunities. Finally, I also want to mention something that David Cunliffe mentioned about students. A key purpose of the ATI will also be to help facilitate placements of researchers and graduate students with industry, while also enabling some of our academic leaders to advance their careers and gain greater financial rewards. And I've met with a number of young scientists, I've met with people who have gone overseas and have come back to New Zealand, and I think that this is really crucial, that it is a one-stop shop for businesses, but also that some of our young people in New Zealand can see a future, they can see an innovative hub, whether that's in Christchurch, in the Hutt Valley, or in Wynyard Quarter, or in another part of Auckland, to see a future for them in terms of both business and science. I think that's quite crucial. Mr Speaker, I'm very pleased to support this bill to the House. It's part of the National Government's significant investment in the last 4 years to $1.24 billion in science and innovation. It's part of a greater ecosystem in terms of how our scientists and our leading entrepreneurs interact with each other. It's part of not just saying we're interested in shuffling the decks in terms of physical infrastructure, but we're actually serious about intellectual property and the way that our businesses interact with scientists. It's also about saying to New Zealanders that if we want to connect with international markets, then we've got to be a lot more savvy in terms of how we operate our research institutions with our businesses. It's about reducing compliance costs for businesses. I support this bill to the House. Thank you.
It's not something, Mr Speaker.
I call the Honourable David Parker.